I just love everything about writing for the stage. I am so fascinated by theatre, and I love the richness and complexity of human expression. At every line that I given, I can make fundamental decisions about, from my side, what are these people thinking? What are they aiming to communicate? What are they feeling, which is something entirely different? How are they trying to see from the vantage point of the other people they're singing to? There's such complexity underneath the surface. At the same time, there's a narrative drawing me along, which pulls me forward. And in the text Martin gives me, there are such a degree of structure, something which fascinates both of us, such a degree of emotion as well. Plus, he is so wonderful in the imagery he gives me. It's so rich in a sensual way, in things that can be smelled, things that can be touched, seen, heard also, in terms of colour, in terms of temperature, in terms of weather. These are things which I find, I suppose, the world will be inspirational for me as a composer. Having wanted to write opera since I was about 9, I had to wait to find the most amazing collaborator. I had to wait to find stories, but also Martin and I had to find a way that felt right for writing opera in the beginning of the 21st century, and that was very hard. I had an intuition that I really needed to deal with story, with narrative, but not in the 19th century way, not in an expressionistic way, not in a symbolist way, not in a Baroque or classical way. We needed to find something fresh. And a lot of composers and their collaborators felt that was a challenge, and many of them went in another direction. Martin, he does the thinking about the stories mainly, because I'm useless at that. And he then goes searching and thinking, and will go spend lots of time in libraries and look up stories, and he suggests a whole variety of things for me to read. And some of those occasionally interest me, others it's automatically that doesn't touch me. And if by any chance I find one that really does interest me, then it's possible he'll produce 2 or 3 or 4 very quickly written pages as an example of how this might work. We don't discuss themes and meanings too much. A type of story, 2 or 3 times over months, he will come back to one story, and it will keep on coming back. And there comes the point when, after lots of discussion about the nature of what we're looking for and what we're trying to do, that he becomes certain, this has happened now, each time he becomes certain this is the one. And I trust him so deeply artistically and in every way. I've got to get myself into the right mood, because this is the first and only first time I'm going to read this text not knowing what it's like. This moment of freshness, just like someone coming to see the completed opera for the first time, hopefully with an open mind, is really important. So I perhaps hesitate for more than 10 minutes and try to get myself into the right frame of mind. And then I read it, and I read it quickly. Of course, it's really interesting, and his narratives and the way he uses narrative techniques is so fascinating that I devour the pages very quickly. Each time that I've read the text for the very first time, I've been covered in goose pimples out of involuntary emotional response to what I've been given. Each time, 4 times. And that gives me confidence and sustains me for the long and arduous process of writing the music over the years to come. I'm the victim of my feelings, and my feelings in musical terms, and they're uncontrollable, and I have simply to follow what I'm able to do. And of course I'm making plans all the time about the overall shape of every scene and the overall shape of the piece. And some composers, some wonderful composers, are really able to make a very detailed plan and even amazingly keep to it in the finished work. But that's not the way that my imagination works. Writing operas is a huge task. You're having to fill a whole evening, an hour and a half in the theatre, and there has to be enough diversity, there's enough fantasy, there has to be sufficient linkage to the drama. This piece is different. There is a central part from it, which is the woman who goes on this journey, and she's on stage throughout. She sings in every single scene, and indeed she's singing most of the time. However, as she meets these individual people on the way, the atmosphere, the temperature, the mood, the type of interaction, the type of characters she meets transform, change radically each time, with no connection. In fact, the opposite. There's to make it clear, I felt that there had to be almost a complete rupture in the nature of the piece, going from each scene to each scene. I actually asked Martin for this. I think it's one of the rare things that I asked him. I wanted to try and find a way through a more episodic and less cumulative structure. The episodic structure is on the surface, but underneath, I wanted it to have a cumulative flow as well. In between each scene, the main character, the woman, reads the page that has been given to her, and she recites, she quotes it each time she encounters a person. And therefore, it would seem pretty obvious to me that when the World One character has ended and she's reciting who she's encountering in this new scene, that the music should be very similar. It's never exactly the same, but there is a sort of linkage, like a daisy chain. I get to know who I'm writing for, and above all, the sound and the limitations and the extraordinary talents of the singers that we work with. And it means that I can shape the roles really very precisely along the type and the character and the sound of their voices. Knowing all voices have weaknesses, knowing the no-go areas, what they don't like to do, what they would do that they don't like to do, their great strengths, their favorite notes, how long their breath can last, in which register, how good is their staccato, their control of vibrato, all manner of things. I create a sort of user's manual, which I refer to while I'm composing. One other slightly selfish thing, which is too much freedom for a composer is terrible. And knowing the limits and the precise tessitura which I can work in, and other capacities or incapacities in the voices, very much focuses me and helps me to shape their mind. Anna Prohaska is a singer who both Martin and I heard 15 years ago, and I ultimately thought, wow, what a beautiful voice, and what she does with lines, and the way she shapes them. She's an incredible servant of the score. She's so faithful to exactly what's written, but she adds something which seems so true to whatever she sings. I've heard her sing Bach. It's just amazing. In this piece, we needed a baritone. Julien Benhamou, who is the director of artistic planning under Pierre Audi at the Aix Festival, he's got an uncanny ability to find voices that I like. It's just extraordinary. I think he understands, maybe even better than I do, my taste in singers, and he's incredibly knowledgeable about voices. So when we were thinking about finding a baritone, it would have to be a new baritone. With one exception, I like to write for new voices with each work, with each operatic work. I like the challenge and the excitement of discovering and, in a way, exploiting a new vocal animal, and not going back to where the wonderful singers I've written to, but wonderful sensation singers I've written for before. And he sent me 4 or 5 clips of baritones. And the first one was this young American I had never heard of, John Brancy. And I knew in 10 seconds that voice has qualities that I already know I like, and other qualities which I haven't heard before. Little did I know the type of thing that he was able to do, and I was able to exploit in my writing for the poor baritone. But that came later. I knew, and I since that first 10 minutes, 10 seconds of watching that video, I never doubted. Also, the people who directed the initial production and designed it, Daniel Janto and Marie-Christina Soma, they were also extremely important and deeply involved with Martin and me on the way to creating the final production. What they did was so loyal to the way the piece moved and felt and looked as well. So to create a piece like this for Martin and me, it's an enormous amount of collaboration is involved, much more than I would ever have believed possible for me when I was a younger composer. And it's actually something which the process is something I hugely enjoy. the composition, the most essential thing for me, is done in intense isolation, complete isolation over years sometimes. But at the same time, particularly when we get like in the last few months, 6 months to the nearer to the premiere, then the collaboration just accelerates, and that process is something I adore. The encounter with Brancy, John Brancy, was particularly strange because he came to sing for me, and we played through a wide variety of repertoire, and I found the voice marvellous, absolutely marvellous, ideal for what I wanted to do. I couldn't believe that he was able to sing over almost 3 octaves, like a rainbow, completely smoothly. And the idea came to me immediately. I knew that there was a scene in which there's a person who, the second encounter of the woman, she meets someone who has the happiness, phony happiness of drugs. As a vocal metaphor, these enormously wide lines which end up highest range of the countertenor and then go back to deep baritone without a break will be a sort of wonderful sonic bubble that would represent this never land, this strange world that his mind and heart is inhabiting when he's so-called contented. The thought did occur to me that who on earth, I've never heard anything like this, who on earth would ever be now or in the future perhaps be able to do this in this way? But I thought it's just too wonderful for me to not just exploit it. All the cast for this opera I felt were and are extraordinary, and it was a joy to get to know their voices and to write for them.